After spending days fighting and overcoming many difficulties to escape her ex-husband, even bravely facing a pervert, our protagonist, Tubi, has finally returned to her homeland, the place where her father and brother live. But the unexpected has happened. Her family's warm house, full of memories, now lies in ruins, reduced to a pile of rubble. Completely stunned, Tubi observes the landscape, unable to believe what she sees, without understanding what has happened. How is it possible that her father's house is so destroyed? And why is no one home? The cruel reality hits hard. There is no trace of her family, and the house she knew has disappeared. What happened to her father's house? And what does Tubi have in store for her on her next journey? Join me to find out in the next episode. Don't forget to subscribe to the channel and activate the bell so you don't miss a single detail. See you soon. In the previous episode, she finally managed to get on the bus that would take her back to her homeland. After traveling a long way, the bus stopped in a small town. From there, she still had a long way to go to get home. Getting off the bus, she began walking slowly. At that moment, she realized she didn't have a single cent left. She didn't have money to take a motorcycle taxi home, so she had no choice but to continue walking. Although hunger was hitting her hard, luck was on her side when she found a little boy selling lottery tickets. The boy, like her, lived in poverty, but he was still incredibly generous. Seeing that Tubi was clearly hungry, the boy offered her half of his bread, an act of selfless kindness. Tubi, moved by his gesture, thanked him wholeheartedly. With that small act of generosity giving her strength, she continued her long walk home, hoping that, despite all the hardships, there was still something waiting for her in the future. Our protagonist, Tubi, continued walking for a while, but soon began to feel exhausted, her body completely fatigued. She decided to sit by the side of the road, deep in thought. While she rested, her mind continued to worry about her mother-in-law, wondering how she was doing, if she was okay. However, despite the uncertainty, Tubi remained steadfast in her decision. She would return home, to her homeland, where she hoped to find a better life with her father and brother. Inwardly, she thought, the road home is so long, if I keep walking, I'll never get there. I need to find a job, something that will allow me to earn some money so I can take public transportation and get home. Her determination to return home was stronger than any other worries. So, with a renewed sense of purpose, Tubi headed to the nearby small town in search of an opportunity. She asked around and finally found a small food shop that agreed to hire her for a day. Tubi couldn't hide her joy at this opportunity. She wasn't afraid of hardships and worked with all her might in the small restaurant. She washed dishes, cleaned tables, and did so without complaining once, because even though the work was hard, she thought of her father and brother, and that kept her motivated. The thought of being so close to her family, of having the opportunity to return to them, erased all her fatigue and gave her the strength to continue. After a long day of work, Tubi received her salary, which reflected the effort she had put into each task. Hoping to be reunited with her father and brother, she quickly took the money and hopped on a motorcycle taxi that would take her home. On the journey, a feeling of happiness enveloped her, knowing that she would finally see her family after everything she had been through. However, upon arriving at what used to be her home, something inexplicable happened. Tubi stopped abruptly, and at that moment, her eyes filled with disbelief. What had been her home, her refuge, was gone. Now all that was left was a pile of rubble, as if there had never been a home there, as if her family had never existed. Feeling completely lost, Tubi fell to her knees. She had gone through so many dangers, so many obstacles, just to return to the warmth of her home. But all she found was emptiness. No one was there. The place where she once believed she would find comfort and safety now offered only ruins. Desperate, not knowing what to do, Tubi sat in the middle of nowhere. Her family was gone without a trace, without a single word of goodbye. How could she find her father and brother? What path should she take now? Her soul was flooded with despair, feeling like hope was completely fading away. But what will Tubi do from now on? How will she face this new tragedy that has befallen her life? Filled with despair, Tubi quickly ran to her nearest neighbor's house to find out information about her family's whereabouts. She knew that her family had had a close relationship with Chu Tang's family and hoped he could offer her some clue. Through conversation with Chu Tang, Tubi discovered the heartbreaking truth. Her father, brother, and stepmother had sold the house over a year ago and had moved to Jack Luck. However, Chu Tang didn't know the exact address. He could only tell her that they had relocated to a small town in Jack Luck. The news hit Tubi like a powerful blow to her heart. After everything she had been through, after months of struggle and suffering, she finally returned home only to find it empty. The thought of her family no longer there devastated her even more. Seeing Tubi's distress, Chu Tang, moved by compassion, offered her shelter for one night, knowing how difficult her journey had been. "Stay with us tonight," he said. "Tomorrow you can continue on your way and look for your family. It's late, and it's not safe for you to travel alone in the dark." With nowhere else to go, feeling completely lost, Tubi accepted the offer to stay at Chu Tang's house. His family welcomed her with a warmth and kindness that deeply touched her heart. She sat with them for a simple dinner, sharing laughter and conversation in an atmosphere filled with generosity. Despite the sadness she felt inside, she couldn't help but feel grateful for the kindness of these people and the feeling that, even though her life was uncertain, there was still some hope. Dinner ended, and Tubi walked out onto the terrace, sitting alone on the threshold of the house. Her mind kept going over the same question. Where are my father and brother? Are they okay? Do they miss me as much as I miss them? Loneliness began to envelop her again as tears streamed down her cheeks. But inside her heart, determination grew. She needed to find her family. She needed answers. Tubi's journey is far from over. Will she find her father and brother? And what will the future hold for her after everything she's been through? Join us on this journey full of emotions, uncertainty, and hope. Don't miss the next chapter. Subscribe and turn on notifications to follow this heartwarming story. One night flew by, and Tubi was deeply grateful. She expressed her gratitude to Chu Tang's family for all the kindness and hospitality they had shown her. In a sincere voice, she said, "Thank you, Chu. I really had nowhere else to go. My family moved somewhere else, and if it weren't for you, I don't know where I would have found refuge." With a sad smile and eyes shining with emotion, Tubi said goodbye to Chu Tang, her heart filled with gratitude. She knew she had to move on. Her next destination was the bus station, where she would take a bus to Jack Luck, hoping to find her father and brother there. With every step she took, Tubi felt the burden of uncertainty lighten a little, but at the same time, the anxiety of not knowing what she would find in Jack Luck haunted her. But even with the fear and uncertainty in her heart, her determination remained intact. She would not give up, no matter how difficult the road was. She was determined to find her family, to rebuild what she had lost. This was just the beginning of a new stage in her life, a journey full of uncertainty but also of hope. What awaits her in Jack Luck? Will she manage to find her family? Join us on this journey filled with emotions, sacrifices, and the tireless search for love and belonging. Tubi continued her journey toward Jack Luck, determined to find her family. She knew the road would be long and fraught with obstacles, but her hope of reuniting with her father and brother kept her spirit strong. With each step, the distance seemed shorter, but her wallet seemed emptier. She needed money and had no choice but to look for work along the way. The journey wasn't easy. With no means of communication to contact her family and few resources, Tubi was forced to do whatever she could to earn some money. She couldn't let the lack of money be an obstacle, so she decided to look for work wherever she could. She found employment on a farm, helping to harvest lemons. The owners, realizing Tubi's situation, were deeply moved by her story. They understood how difficult it must be for a young woman like her to be alone, struggling to find her family. With hearts full of compassion, they not only offered her a fair wage but also wished her the best, hoping she would soon be reunited with her loved ones. For Tubi, every job, however humble, meant one step closer to her goal. Every sacrifice was a hope of being able to fulfill her dream of being with her family again. The kindness of strangers motivated her to keep going. She didn't know how many more difficulties she would have to face, but she was willing to keep fighting. Reuniting with her family was the only goal that kept her going, and no matter how much she had to walk or work, Tubi would not give up. The darkness of night fell gently over the landscape. While Tubi found shelter in an abandoned house, exhausted and with her heart full of uncertainty, she lit a small fire to warm herself. The dim light of the fire illuminated her tired face, and with trembling hands, she placed an ear of corn on the flames. This corn she had picked along the way was her supper, a simple comfort amidst the emotional storm she was going through. In that silence of the night, as the wind whispered and the stars timidly peeked out, Tubi couldn't help but think of her family. Sadness took hold of her, and the desire to reunite with her father and brother became a desperate need. The image of her family, that deep and vital connection, was the only thing that kept her going. She longed with all her being to find her loved ones, to start over, to leave behind all the suffering her former husband had caused her, that cruel man who had tortured her for so long. After a tiring day in which each step seemed heavier than the last, Tubi only wanted to rest. She needed to relieve her body, which bore the weight of her scars, and also her soul, which carried the deep marks of betrayal and pain. However, as the shadows moved forward and the warmth of the small campfire brought her some relief, the hope for a better future remained alive in her heart. She knew her struggle wasn't over, but her determination to find peace and happiness for herself and her family kept her strong. The night dragged on, and although her body craved rest, her mind kept racing with thoughts of what awaited the next day. Her path was still long, but with each step, Tubi drew closer to her destination. In the distance, two men dressed in dark clothing, covering their entire bodies, appeared to be good people, but they were not. They were two men consumed by addiction, in the throes of withdrawal. From afar, they observed an abandoned house with a dim light glowing inside. They immediately thought someone might be there, and their minds filled with a dark thought. This place was remote, almost deserted. No one would be able to hear anything or arrive in time if something bad happened. Upon discovering that only young Tubi was in the house, alone and vulnerable, the two men saw the perfect opportunity, an easy target for their malicious intentions. They slowly approached. Although the young woman saw them coming, she didn't have much time to react. She grabbed a lit stick and tried to defend herself by screaming for help, but the silence of the desolate place surrounded her. No one was around. "We need money. Give me everything you have quickly," the men said, their voices filled with threat and desperation. In a matter of seconds, the two men had her under control, pushing her to the ground and constantly threatening her. Tubi struggled with all her might to escape, but it wasn't enough. Her resistance was in vain against two men much stronger than her. Despite her fear, she continued to fight and scream for help. Fearing that someone might hear, one of the men covered her mouth with his hand and began to squeeze her neck tightly. Shortly after, Tubi stopped struggling. She seemed to have fainted. The men, terrified at the thought of killing her, fled quickly, leaving the young woman alone in that abandoned house. Will anyone come to save her? What does fate have in store for her after being attacked by these two men? Don't forget to subscribe to find out what happens next.